This video will review the use of the IR spectrometers in the organic labs. The first thing to remember is never ever wear gloves when you're working with the computers anywhere in the organic labs. It's assumed that you have chemicals on those gloves, and those chemicals are going to be treated as contaminants or hazardous waste. And so if you put it on the keyboard and then someone else goes to use the keyboard and is not wearing gloves, you're going to be exposing them to those chemicals. So remember, don't ever wear gloves when you're working with the computers in the lab, and don't ever leave the lab while wearing gloves, because we don't want to bring the chemicals on your gloves out into the hallways and the bathrooms at school. Now, when you first get to the computer, if you're the first one to use it, the IR program will not be running. So the first thing you'll need to do is activate it. If you look at the screen, it will be a Windows screen, and you want to click on the icon that says IR. This will open up the IR user, and you should see an icon that looks like a little triangle that says Easy Omnic. Easy Omnic is the name of the program we use to run the IR spectrometers in the lab. Now when you open up Easy Omnic, you will see the program, and the thing to look for is at the top right hand side of the screen there should be a little green check mark in the box for bench status. If that green check mark is not there, that means the computer is not communicating with the IR spectrometer and you need to find your TA. If the green check mark is there, then you're ready to use the program. Now, I have defaults set on the computers for collecting data and processing data. However, when you first open up the program, those defaults might not be loaded. Now, if you're not the first person to use the IR, this should not be a problem as long as no one has closed the program after they've used it. But if you are the first person, you're going to have to load the default preferences. You can find the default preferences by going to the menu bar and choosing Collect. Once you open up Collect, you will see Experiment Setup. Choose Experiment Setup, and you will see a screen where you have the option to open a file. And you'll see a whole list of files. The file you want to find is the file called OrgoLab. If you open up OrgoLab and then choose OK, that will load the default parameters into the computer. Now you're ready to run a background. When you run a background, make sure there is no material on the diamond of the IR spectrometer. What you're seeing on the screen here is the background. And for the background, basically what is happening is the IR spectrometer is collecting a FID once every second. It's not going to start collecting FIDs and adding them to the memory until you choose Start Collection at the top right-hand side of the screen. Then on the bottom left, you can see here it is just collected 8 FIDs, and then it will ask you, do you want to add these FIDs to the window? You can say no, in which case it will clear it, or you can say yes, go ahead, add it to the window, in which case it will show you the background spectrum on the screen. Of course, you don't want to have the background spectrum on the screen, so at this point you can say clear, and that will clear the spectrum. Next, you want to place your sample on the opening where the diamond is on the ATR stage. If your sample's a liquid, simply place one drop over the opening, and then turning the anvil clockwise, turn it down until it just makes contact with the surface of the drop. This will trap the drop over the diamond opening, and in case your sample is volatile, it will not evaporate. So make sure you trap the drop. If your sample is a solid, place just enough of your solid material to cover the opening over the diamond. Remember, with solids, you want to make sure that your solid is crushed as finely as possible so that you get maximum surface area contact with the face of the diamond. Then again, turning clockwise, lower the anvil over the surface and start pushing the solid material up against the face of the diamond. Don't worry about over-tightening, because you will not be able to over-tighten the anvil. You'll hear it click, so listen for the click, and that will tell you you're putting as much force as you can against the diamond. Then, once you have put your sample on the diamond, hit Collect Sample. You can title the name of your file if you want. And then remember, the IR will collect one FID every second until you say Start Collection. So go ahead and hit Start Collecting, and then you will see the counter at the bottom left start to count up to 8 FIDs. Now, one of the advantages of doing this start collecting thing is because before you hit start collecting, if you see that the peaks on the screen are very weak and you're not happy with them, then don't hit start collecting. Before you waste time collecting, go back and add more sample or twist the anvil to try to get better contact with your material up against the surface of the diamond. Then, once you're done collecting the sample, you want to add it to your window. And then you can do a few things to process the data. For instance, if you look under the menu bar where it says Analyze, you can say Find Peaks. A threshold bar will appear on the screen, and by adjusting the threshold bar, you can either make more or fewer peak numbers for labels appear on the screen. You need to bring a jump drive to the lab so that you can save your data onto it and bring it home for your lab report. So, before you go to save your data, take your jump drive or USB key and insert it into one of the USB ports with the computer. Now, some of the computers might have a USB hub connected to them. If they do, you can use that. But if not, it's easy to find a USB port on a Macintosh computer. It's always located on the back of the keyboard. So, once you have inserted your USB key, you're ready to save your file. So choose File, Save As, and give it a name. Now, this is the important part. Once you've given it a name, you must save it as the correct type of file. And the type of file you always want to save it at is a TIFF file. TIFF is a universal format that you'll be able to open up later on when you get home. If you forget to save it as a TIFF file, you won't be able to open up the file when you get home because you won't have the Easy Omnic software. If you do that, that's not a big problem. You can always bring your jump drive back to the lab, reload the file, resave it, make sure you save it as a TIFF file, and then you can download it onto your USB key and take it with you. Then the last thing you have to do before you leave is clean your sample off of the diamond. So the easiest way to clean your sample off the diamond is to simply take a Kim wipe and wipe your sample off the diamond. That's easier to do with that's easier to do with liquids than solids. If you have a solid and that solid was pressed up hard against the surface of the diamond, you might want to use a microspatula, kind of like an ice scraper blade on a windshield, to scrape the material off the surface of the diamond. What you do not want to do is you never, ever want to use an organic solvent to clean the surface of the diamond. What happens is the organic solvents get trapped down in around the facet of the diamond, and then the vapors from that solvent will always show up in the IR spectrum once it's collected. So you don't ever want to use a solvent. If you ever see a solvent bottle near an IR spectrometer, please take it and put it over by one of the sinks. Someone has probably been making the mistake of trying to clean the diamond with a solvent. If a diamond is hard to clean and it has material stuck on it, and you've tried with a Kim wipe and you've tried with a microspatula like an ice scraper, then you want to go find a TA. We do have special Kim wipes in the lab that the TAs can use that have an oil on them that will dissolve materials that are stuck to the diamond. But only the TAs can use these special cloths to clean the diamond. So once the diamond is clean and your IR spectrum has been cleared from the window, don't forget to take your USB key with you, and we're ready to have the next person go on.